Hey everybody, and welcome back to Tech Talk. Today we're going to be doing a review on the Xiaomi Mi Max 2. For people in the United States, Xiaomi is, excuse me, probably a brand you haven't heard of before. They're one of the bigger manufacturers in China. So this channel is Tech Talk, and we do a lot of reviews on tech that's coming from all over the world. And personally, I like things that maybe are a little bit unknown just because I'm curious. And sometimes when I do that, I get lucky, and sometimes I don't. Experiencing these Chinese phones has been kind of a journey. And like I said, some are good and some are bad. So Xiaomi has been one of the best and surprisingly excellent devices. So I have two of their devices, the Mi Max 2, this one that we're going to review today, and the Mi A1, which is what we're video taping this on. So if you've never heard of Xiaomi, Xiaomi is a Chinese brand, mainland Chinese brand, and they were just about bankrupt about a little over a year ago. The company went through kind of a major metamorphosis or a phoenix kind of thing. They stuck it out, and they're coming back with a pretty strong presence in the market in 2017, 2018. They've been really popular. And the reason for their success is pretty solid hardware. Solid hardware, decent prices, and decent software. So what do you get? The Mi Max 2, what makes this device so cool is this is one of the largest cell phones that you can buy. It has a 6.44-inch screen. It comes in at about 329 pixels per square inch, I think, something around there. It may be a little higher, a little lower, but it's still in the Retina display resolution range. It's an IPS panel, so it doesn't have like some of the color saturation that you would see in an AMOLED panel, for example, the deep blacks and things like that. The contrast ratio isn't as good. However, for an IPS display, as you can see, I'm practically, putting this on its edge, and you can still see really clearly. So the angles on this display are excellent. It is very good resolution. Even when there's screen in screen, it looks perfect. I don't see pixels. So that alone is really nice. I mean, just to have that big screen. For someone my age, I'm in 46, so my eyes are starting to fade a little. Looking at a 5-inch screen or smaller is hard. 5.5-inch screen is about as small as I can do comfortably, and even that seems really small once you start using this phone. So you get 64 gigabytes of internal storage, 4 gigabytes of RAM, and the Snapdragon octa-core 625 processor, which gives you pretty solid performance. And that's the kind of recipe that they've used: a good panel, good RAM, good internal storage. So you're off right out the bat with a decent kit. If you add to that the build quality that they put on these devices, I mean, the Mi Max 2 isn't as premium build as the Mi A1, but it's still very good. I mean, it's all aluminum, all over. There's no camera bump. It's just really, really nice. It has the 2.5 curved glass, which I'm not the hugest fan of, but it works. It's Gorilla Glass 3, so there is some scratch resistance. The other thing that's really cool is the phone has a dual speaker setup. So it has your usual microphone, USB-C, and speaker, but the earpiece also serves as a loudspeaker, and it gets pretty loud. It isn't as loud as the speaker down here, but it does get noticeably loud and gives you a rich stereo separation sound. So this phone gets, I wouldn't say as loud as my wife's iPhone, but it gets pretty loud. It doesn't distort and it has a good amount of bass. It's really phenomenally nice for what it is. I mean, if you're expecting, really loud, deep sound, it's not. It's a phone. I mean, come on. But for what it is, it's really nice. The phone handles most games, most things pretty well. It does stutter a little bit on graphics, so because of the screen, if I shift here, you can see that little bit of black on half of the screen. It's not a big deal. It's just a little bit of a glitchy thing, but it's very common. So what it needs is more RAM, probably a faster processor, or just a better graphics driver. That being said, again, like I said, playing video games, Asphalt 8 plays really nice, and especially with the bigger screen, it's really nice to play. It has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack at the top, an IR blaster, so you can use this as a remote control for your TV. And the sound quality on the headphones is really good. No background noise. Sounds really excellent to me. Also, the phone has a 5300 milliamp battery, and quick charge. I don't know about how long it takes to charge the battery. It is pretty quick, but you have to allow for the larger capacity. So maybe an hour and a half. But to fully charge this huge battery is quite impressive. And I would say you can get 4 days of medium use out of this phone. If you really tried to eke it out, you could probably get 5 or 6 days, lowering the settings and brightness and things like that. But without doing any of that and having it on just normal performance, you can easily get 3 to 4 days of use out of the phone, and that's phenomenal. You can use this really heavily, and you don't have to worry, oh, am I going to run out of battery? No, you're not. You're just not. So I wish more phone companies would think about the battery capacity. It's a really big issue. Weight is one thing, but you know what? I'd rather have the weight and have more battery than always be looking to charge my phone. So Xiaomi just scores on every capable. I mean, if you look at the build quality, there's no gaps, there's no seams. The buttons are black aluminum buttons. They look great. I had this phone for about a week. I don't remember how I got the scratch, but it got just a little scratch you can see there. Otherwise, the finish is pretty durable. It's resistant to fingerprints pretty much, but I would get a case immediately. I got a case from Capaver. There are not a lot of cases for this phone, but the Capaver case is excellent, protective. You could even set it down like this, and it's not going to touch the glass. As long as there's nothing on the surface. So, for what, $230 with the case, you've got an excellent not all day phone, but super, all week phone. And so because it's a Chinese phone, one of the issues with Chinese phones is network compatibility in the United States. The network carriers aren't playing friendly. They don't want the competition from these companies. They don't want Xiaomi in America because iPhone and Lenovo and all these other companies have put in so much profit. They charge so much more for their devices because they have to, because of the warranty support that they offer. They're also trying to please the various retailers, including like Verizon and the carriers. So everybody's trying to make money off of the devices at each step of the way, which adds a lot of money to the cost of the device. When you're buying it straight from the manufacturer from China, there's no middleman. You're just paying for the hardware itself, really, and the development of the software from the company. So it's a much different situation, and so you're not paying all that, And all these other companies are like, hey, that's not fair. We have, we paid our way into the market and it costs us a lot of money to do that. And so that's why you're hearing all of these security warnings, like don't buy a Huawei phone, don't buy a Xiaomi phone, don't buy a ZTE phone because they're state-owned and all this. Look, everything that's being manufactured is state-owned in China. Come on. Let's be realistic. And secondly, most, if not all, of the cell phones are made in China anyway. So if they wanted to do something to compromise the security, they could put a hardware feature on all these devices. We wouldn't even know it, and they could be compromising our security. So if that was really a concern, they wouldn't be manufacturing them there at all. So I take it with a grain of salt. There are some security concerns with some of the lower cost Chinese brands. So if you're going with Doogee, Liago, or some of the other brands that are really inexpensive and they're offering a lot of tech, you have to wonder how they're doing that. And one of the ways they do that is by putting spyware and malware on the phone and getting money on the back end, so to speak. So you want to avoid that. But Xiaomi is definitely not one of those companies. I would take a little bit. I mean, you don't know because they do have a backup system. I've read their privacy policy. It seems very straightforward, just like any other company. The only issue that I have is because the data is stored in China. And obviously, in order for a company to be as big as Xiaomi, they have to be linked with the Chinese government somehow. So that means that my data is being observed in some way by the Chinese government. So, I mean, that's just something you have to understand. But that could be said about every single device that's made there, not just the Xiaomi or the Huawei. And so why is it that the Apple phones are okay, the Lenovo phones are okay, but the Huawei and the Xiaomi phones are not? Doesn't make sense. So anyway, beyond that, politics. So the thing is, you're not going to see these in the United States. You're not going to be able to pick it up. You're going to have to buy it online from a Chinese retailer like GearBest, Geekbuying, or Banggood. Those are the three retailers that I would stick with. I've used all three, and I've had decent results with all three. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. They're all about the same. The caveat with the Chinese retailers is once you get the device, that's pretty much it. You're on your own. You have a problem, you got to deal with it. They do have warranty support, but it's slow, and you got to send it back to China. So unless the thing is DOA or you have some other issue with it, you're kind of on your own. Now with GearBest, one of the things that they offer is shipping insurance. So if there is a DOA, they will ship you a brand new unit, no questions asked, right away. And then you can either keep the old one or send it back or whatever. So I would definitely recommend purchasing the shipping insurance through GearBest in case you have a problem. That's the best remedy that you're going to get. Otherwise, you're on your own. So, but again, you're not paying $400 for the device. And so that's a pretty great thing. Software. So you're dealing with Xiaomi, Mi software, Mi UI. Mi UI is definitely a heavy skin. The launcher is a custom launcher. What I have on here now is the Pixel launcher that I installed myself, which I really love. It's great on this phone. But two things about the Mi UI software that I don't like. You can't uninstall any of the Mi apps, which they have Mi apps for almost everything. And then all of the Google apps, you can't disable them or uninstall them. So you can't do that with any. So you got like 50 apps by default, whether you want them or not, and you can't do anything about it. And I really don't like that. So, but some of them are useful, and if you could sync up. So because I'm in the United States, the Mi syncing software doesn't really work for me, and I've tried multiple ways to solve that, and it's just a bug. So that's a little bit of an annoyance. But overall, I mean, the camera works really well. It's a decent. There's a 12 megapixel shooter on the rear. It's an IMX Sony sensor, as you can see here. Sorry, it does pretty well. It's not choppy. I don't know if it has optical image stabilization. It might have electronic image stabilization, but because of the price of this phone, I doubt it has optical image stabilization. I believe the first like 2x zoom is not digital. It's actually a manual zoom. But anyway, the cameras on the phone, it's a mid-range phone, so you're getting mid-range cameras. Low light, you're going to get some noise. But generally, it's above average. It's not a cheap camera. It works well. I'm glad it's not a dual camera. It's just a single camera. And I find that those, unless you're spending a lot, the dual cameras are kind of gimmicky. They don't work real well. So I'm really happy that Xiaomi didn't include that. And there's no bump on it. So it's so seamless. The fingerprint reader on the back of the phone works really well. It's extremely accurate. And it takes about a second, maybe a little over that sometimes. But it's a pretty quick reader and it's very accurate. So, and again, you can have like 20 apps open. You can be playing a video game with the apps, other apps going. It doesn't really slow down. You may get stutters with the video game if you have a lot of apps open at the same time, but beyond that, you won't. And it's real easy to, because of the capacitive. The other thing about Xiaomi that I really like is the way they designed the phone. So you have capacitive buttons on the bottom that light up so that the whole screen, you don't have any of the screen taken away by on-screen buttons. And I really like that feature. There's a whole lot of customizations that you can make in the Xiaomi software that are very useful. So it's a mixed bag for me. I really like pure Android for the most part, but I can't complain about the Mi development. It seems that it's a very active community. There's a forum app on here, and you can get on the forum and share your feelings and concerns and get some advice and things like that. And if you have a bug or a problem, they will work on it as long as you let them know. There's a feedback app to do so as well. And I really like the active development that I see in the community. The phone that I have is using what's called the global ROM. So there's a global edition, there's a Chinese edition, and then there's the developer editions of both. And I have the developer ROM global edition, which adds a few extra features to the phone and basically just gives it better network reception. I was only getting 3G, and when I put the developer ROM, now I have full 4G coverage. So it's just one of those small things, and you get more frequent updates. And I haven't noticed any stability issues. So stability still seems great. More features and more frequent updates. For me, that's like the perfect combination. I'm a nerd. I like to install custom ROMs. And with this, I don't feel the need to do so because it gets feature updates pretty regularly. It may not be running Oreo. It's still running Nougat. There may be plans for an upgrade to Oreo. There may not be. I'm not really sure. I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference because there's nothing really missing. You can use dual apps on this, just like you can in Oreo. And it's very stable. So, I'd rather have the stable OS than the more buggy OS for a phone like this for my daily driver. I do have the Mi A1, which has Oreo on it, so I can tell you there aren't a lot of differences that I can see between the two, beside the fact that, the vanilla Android is a much different interface than the Mi UI. I do prefer the vanilla Android better, but the Mi UI isn't bad. And like I said, there's a lot of options available for people, and you wouldn't find that in any other company. You can't get a Samsung and put a developer ROM from Samsung on the phone. It's just not going to happen. And you can unlock the phone from Xiaomi. You have to wait 3 days, but it's a pretty straightforward process, and then you can flash anything you want. So they're more open for customized ROMs and things like that for people that are into that kind of thing, which is definitely something that I appreciate. So, if you are kind of tech savvy, you don't mind a little bit of risk, and you don't like spending $800, $600, $1,000 on a phone, but you want a bigger screen than the normal 5.5 inch, the Mi Max 2 is perfect. It really is the best device out there. Media consumption on it is beautiful. It's really nice. The whole screen is taken up by Netflix, stereo sound. It's really, really good. The other thing is benchmarks. I did, this gets about 64,000 on Antutu. I'm going to redo the benchmarks because I basically did some tweaks through the developer options on the phone to basically make it run a little faster and basically get rid of the MIUI optimizations. So there are optimizations that MIUI uses on the software, and I think it's to extend the battery life, because when those are on, it's just insane, the battery life. When I turn it off, I notice battery life isn't quite as good, but performance seems a little better. So I don't know, I'm going to have to do benchmark tests and get back to you guys and let you know. But there really isn't any reason not to buy the Mi Max 2. It's probably one of the best phones if you can deal with the size. Obviously 6.4, I'm a big guy, I'm 6'4", and so for me this is fine. Obviously you can't go to the top of the screen with your thumb to the bottom. It's just not possible. You got to kind of shift the phone in your hand to do so. So it is a big phone, and sometimes it's too big for me, and that's a problem. And that's why I have the Mi A1, which is a 5.5 inch phone for those cases. So just, understand the risks, but I think the benefits way outnumber any of the risks that you would get. If you purchase the insurance from whatever retailer you get, you're going to be solid. And there will be a Mi Max 3 coming out. Now, they released this, I believe, in September. So there'll probably be the Mi Max 3 coming out around the same time. I don't know. But definitely Xiaomi is going to be releasing new devices. Probably their higher end first, and then